Oh, the various political organizations you mean that Bostonians belong to? The question was about, I think, if I heard you right, the various political organizations that Boston...
The two Boston pubs and the sign.
Oh, the taverns. Oh, okay. Yes, okay. This is a question that has interested me ever since I've read about the revolution. So my first book, Rebels Rising, I talk about the types of places in the cities where people got together to talk politics or, and behave in political ways. So my chapter on taverns in the first book focused on New York City, but there is also a good book on Massachusetts taverns and their relationship to a revolution. It's an old book by a guy named David Conroy. So it's very hard to know whether to credit, but there are some stories that the Bostonians gathered at maybe a couple of different taverns, maybe private houses, a mix of different things. So the Green Dragon Tavern, for instance, which there's a restaurant now that calls itself the Green Dragon Tavern, but they claimed to have had a role. The St. Andrew's Society of Freemasons met at the Green Dragon Tavern, and there's a telling gap in their minutes on the night of December 16th, and we know that some of the members of that lodge of Masons were involved in the Boston Tea Party. So there is some suggestion that that lodge was involved in the planning of the Tea Party. And I know some of the other very politicized taverns where there were groups that met regularly that might have lent their membership to the Boston Tea Party for the night. But a lot of those stories are very sketchy. I mean, it's really curious. It's really not until the 1820s and 1830s, when most of the participants were either very elderly or had passed away, that people start coming out with these stories. And so it's difficult in that way to reconstruct the actual night in question and what was happening. So I attempt in the book to answer that question as best as I can based on evidence that seems valid, but on the other hand, I found stories that were completely made up, like that there was this group called the Long Room Club that, so that's this fake bit of history that's made it into subsequent books. Actually, I'm embarrassed to say, including Fisher's book, he makes a big deal out of the Long Room Club, even though there probably was no such thing. But there is a claim that what that's based on is people who met in the long room, sort of like the room where we had cocktails upstairs, that was above Eads and Gill's printing office. These were the publishers of the Boston Gazette. And the Massachusetts Historical Society actually still owns the punch bowl, a punch bowl from this room. And so there's some suggestion that these guys had met informally in that room and done some of the planning of the Tea Party. And obviously it would have made sense for the publishers of the Boston Gazette to be very politicized patriots, but it's very difficult to confirm that stuff. So I did my best to kind of say, well, what were these guys involved in? What was their political life like before they joined the Tea Party? And that was a fascinating aspect of my research. Yes, sir.